Hi, I'm Bo Howell, CEO and co-founder of Jute, and we're back with our next Fireside chat, where we talk with industry professionals on hot topics and questions that we're seeing from clients and around the industry. Today, I'm here with Attilio from Veneziano Partners to talk about Europe and some of the trends that are developing there that may be of interest to U.S. managers looking to raise capital in Europe. So, Attilio, welcome.
Hi, Bo, and thank you for having me.
So if I'm a US manager, I've never participated in the European market before, but I'm curious about getting started. What are some of the steps I can take to start positioning myself to launch products in Europe?
I think that on the one hand, assets have always been on the rise in Europe, right? So there is this might be an interesting moment still to consider Europe. I think that the one piece of advice that I think it might be sound is, first of all, don't think that Europe works according to the same dynamics that you see in the US. This might be not the best way to start. And also there are a lot of we call them management companies in European language. So basically firms that take on the risk, the compliance related to the management of European funds or non-European as well. And so basically that could be very well a good way to start testing the waters, if you like, because these management companies, they were created partly because of IFMD, but also because there are experts who have been in this market for many years, and the upside for a US manager is just the one of being able to tap into local expertise, and at the same time, the structure of a management company allows for delegation of the portfolio management back to the manager in the US, and that is an element of comfort because they can concentrate on what they know how to do best, leaving the rest of the work and the worries to specialists on the ground.
Yeah, and that's interesting. That's actually the most common scenario that I've seen with our clients, right, where they hire a management company. And I think for a lot of US managers, probably an easy way to think about that relationship is almost like an advisor sub-advisor relationship, right?
Yeah.
Where US manager is a sub-advisor focused on portfolio management, and the advisor manages a lot of the other operational aspects of the fund and the product.
Yeah, no, exactly like this. And I think that it's one of the other things to consider is to be able to identify an audience first. And
Right.
because we call it a sort of a reverse engineering process. Once you have identified your audience, then you can consider what type of fund you want to build in Europe, whether you want to use your own US offshore structures, whether it makes sense to domicile a fund in a jurisdiction in Europe other than a different one. So basically, most important piece that I would recommend is to know your audience first to the extent possible. And these days, digitalization has made this very easy, yet regulators in Europe look at what happens online. So it's not really for long a free environment, if you like.
Sure. And is that something your firm helps clients with, is to kind of identify some of those possible distribution channels and partners?
We do. We have a network of independent capital raisers we have been working with, and we introduce them to the clients who might want to see if there is appetite for what they do and what would be the best formula for matches to happen.
And if I get to the point where it seems like I may have a distribution channel, I may have some initial seed investors, do you find certain jurisdictions within the US are easier to kind of tap into, or does it really just, is it on a product by product basis?
I think that historically, the first places to where a US manager might look to, let's say, venture is European experience and European journey are the United Kingdom and Switzerland. Ironically, even though they are nested geographically in Europe, they are no longer part to Europe anymore, right? And the UK is very recent. Switzerland never was. I think that Netherlands is another relatively straightforward jurisdiction, and possibly the Scandinavian countries. Continental Europe seems to be, let's say, a step two once there is more understanding of the culture, the customs, the rules, and also when there is sufficient interest to build a European product. It seems to be, and it's historically very difficult to access certain domiciles like France or Italy or even Spain with Cayman Fund, for instance.
So do you find a lot of the funds organized in a like Luxembourg or some other jurisdiction like that?
Yeah, I think that the US managers historically have always seen Ireland as their gateway to Europe, right? And so this remains the case. However, Luxembourg seems to be the preference for investors in continental Europe, right? And even though there is a little bit of a gap because Luxembourg speaks more French than it does English, I think that the easiest would be try via Ireland, and then basically as as a brand gets known better with the investor audience, maybe consider Luxembourg for specific type of situation where investors might prefer, and those are especially the ones in continental Europe, a Luxembourg fund.
Sure, interesting. Well, one of the things that is always in the news these days is COVID-19. How has COVID kind of impacted U.S. managers who have operations in Europe? Are they still able to kind of maintain those operations and grow assets, or has it kind of caused some dislocations?
I think that COVID-19 has, of course, impacted the ability to be physically present, for instance, for board meetings, right? And you have to have certain meetings in the domicile of the fund, or certain strategic decision taken there, because you want for these funds to be still subject to the tax regime of that domicile. This being said, what I've seen personally is that digitalization has worked as well. So where investors were still making investment, or capital allocators allocating money, that has worked rather nicely in digital fashion as well. I think that there is a lot of reliance on technology in Europe as well, and that's for all the compliance and the reporting. And so basically that isn't really an issue. I think that the next challenge will be accepting that also the digital space has boundaries, and it's something that regulators will look at rather than considering it Wild West, if I'm allowed the analogy.
Sure, absolutely. Well, Attilio, this has been great. Any other closing thoughts for U.S. managers before we wrap up?
I think that the one last thing that I saw is that there is increasingly interest in setting up crypto funds, and basically I don't think that the environment is as mature as we would want it to see in Europe. There are still discussions around whether the asset class can be considered as such from a regulatory perspective, or whether there are entities that would act as custodians for this asset. And I know that basically this is not a problem in the Cayman
right.
type of paradigm. And on the Cayman also, I have recently read again that most likely it might be included again in the list of countries that don't cooperate for tax purposes with Europe. And so that might pose in a few years down the line some issues with the ability to have these funds authorized for marketing in Europe. And so basically this is the rules of the game are by and large changing, and probably some of the things that US managers have been historically able to do would change accordingly.
Sounds like we might have to have you back in the future then to talk about some of those
Probably.
changes.
Would be my pleasure.
Well, great. Thanks, Attilio. And thanks everyone for watching today. Stay tuned for more of our fireside chats. And don't forget to check out our blog for a series of posts geared toward US managers interested in expanding to Europe. Attilio, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.